Google Hangouts, if anyone in your organization is still using them, then they're going to lose it on November the 1st, and it's going to force them to Google Chat on the web. So just to be aware of that, they shouldn't lose any data, but if they've got stuff that's in there that they're trying to keep hold of, then get them to move it now, just in case they're nervous about it. But there shouldn't be an issue. These tiny numbers. So that's that. Meet hardware. I don't think anyone is using Meet hardware. So if there are, well, I can come back to that at the end, but I'm going to scoot over that. I'm going to go to this one as well. So in a calendar event, when you create a calendar event in Google Calendar now, you can, in the cog, you can make someone a co-host. So you go into this, you create the event, add all of these things don't appear unless you've got people invited in. If it's just you in there, you won't necessarily get all these. If there's just two of you, you won't get the co-host options, I don't think, because I don't think you need it. I think you have to have 3 or more, if I remember rightly. But you get the option to add them in. You can see just where I've added people in this picture, where we've added people in, just above, you've got a little tick box that says allow them to share any artifacts. So if you use the meeting notes inside the calendar event, if you create a Jamboard inside the calendar event and all those kinds of things, then they will get access to all of those things. And the attendance register afterwards, and if you use polls or Q&As. So all of the resources, all the artifacts that are attached to that calendar event, with a single tick now, just click the tick there, and any of your co-hosts get access to all of those. Okay. If you're using the Meet inside Google Classroom, if a teacher in there joins, then it's assumed they're a co-host anyway, so they get them anyway, because they're presumably because all the sharing permissions are sorted through Google Classroom anyway. So just to be aware of that. Handy little thing, you can untick it and they don't, but it's going to just much quicker to get that sharing sorted. With all the artifacts that might go with a Google Meet.
I think it's right in saying as well, Paul, is if you add them as a co-host during the meeting, then they won't get the artifacts at the end.
When you add them, no, they won't. But there's a prompt, isn't there? When you add them, I forgot what it says now. Let me just.
I think I read somewhere that if you tried adding them as a co-host during the meeting,
and it just drops them in automatically. I just added Bryony as a co-host, and it just drops you in. You did used to get a prompt about sharing, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean you can add people in, but it's just the artifacts at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, good. There's the slide deck on. There we go. Okay, so you might have noticed if you use chat, I mean, I know, for example, colleague Sergar use chat quite extensively with their various groups. It makes suggestions about your replies. So it uses Google's artificial intelligence to suggest the reply for a question that someone's sent you. And it kind of uses knowledge of your writing style, understanding the message and an appropriate response for that particular message. And it just means you can just click on one of the suggestions and press it, or click on it and it jumps into the chat, into the text box, and then you can add, like in this example, they're adding additional exclamation marks and so on and so forth. But it will now recognize Spanish, French, and Portuguese as well. So if someone emails you in one of those 3 languages, it will recognize that language and give you the options in the suggested replies in that same language, which is pretty clever. I don't speak any of those 3. I don't speak Spanish and Portuguese at all. I speak the tiniest bit of French, so less than GCSE French, less than year 7 French probably. So I didn't want to demonstrate that, but you get the point. You're not surprised to know, as we've got colleague Sergar on the call, that Welsh is not in that list, but you never know. One day it might be there. I mean, Welsh is in Google Translate, isn't it? But it's not in the AI. Only those 3 languages in English. Okay. This is quite nice. And I do wish they would get a move on with Google Sites. Google Sites has still got a long way to go to match the functionality of Classic Sites. Classic Sites is no longer available. One of the things I used to use all the time in Classic Sites was the page level permissions, because the students used to write blogs about their learning in my last school, and I would give individual students who was their turn to write the blog access to a single page where they could write a blog. All the others had view only, and that individual had write access. So they had full edit access to that particular single page within a Google site. So I'm really desperate for that to arrive, but things are beginning to get better. And you'll see in the insert menu down the bottom, if you're watching this little GIF, there's a spacer option there now. So you can actually add space, and if you want a bit more space within a page to make it look better, then that's good. And that is kind of in combination with the option to adjust the spacing within the themes around images and items within a page as well. So you've got spacing around items, and then you've got spacing kind of vertically when you're doing a vertical page as well. So it allows you to do that, which is really nice. They'll get there in the end, but it's just taken them a long while to get all the functionality back in there. Okay. If you've got students who use screen readers, there's a whole load of new Google shortcuts that make seeing the screen reader to read the calendar that little bit better. And the link at the top of this slide is a link to the blog that tells you that. But what they didn't include was a link to the page where all the shortcuts were. So the second link on this slide, which Chris will share out before the end of the week, takes you to the page where all the links are. I will show you some of those later, because there's some really neat ones that give easy access to a different view of the screen. So we'll cover some of those as a demonstration towards the end, because like I say, there are not very many updates today, so we've got time to do a couple of demos. These are now the updates that came from the EDU in 90. If you aren't subscribing to Google's YouTube for Education, Google for Education channel, then I suggest that you do. I'll put the link in at the end. And they do an EDU in 90, where they never are. It's supposed to be 90 seconds. They never are 90 seconds. But there's a whole lot of new resources that have gone into the applied digital skills resources, which hasn't appeared in the updates that you can get if you subscribe to the updates that I use for these slide decks, but is a new update, and there's some more files in there. And even if you haven't ever used it, there are loads and loads of resources. This is just a screen grab of the first 8 things in there, and you get all the resources and a kind of a lesson outline of what you might do with this particular suggested series of lessons and things. It gives you an estimate of hours, tells you how long it will take to do, and so on and so forth. So there are lots and lots of really nice ideas, from creating a budget to creating a guide to an area, promoting an event. There's all sorts of other things. There's some app scripts things in there. Although if I was going to do scripting, I'd probably go to CS First, which is another free Google tool. But there are some kind of coding examples in here as well. So there's loads and loads of stuff in there that you can make use of, and it's all completely free. And you can link it to, you can see there's a classroom icon on each of these, so you can send it to your students through Google Classroom, and it's just a link, and it sends you back to the Applied Digital Skills web page. But it's got a little bit of integration in between the two there, which is really handy. So I would encourage you to make sure that all your staff know about this, because there's almost certainly something in there for most subjects within your curriculum offerings. So just to be aware of that. In the EDU in 90 YouTube updates, they've also announced a Google Classroom course. I think this would have been much more sensible had this arrived a month earlier, but it's here now, so let's be glad of that. Particularly useful for any new members of staff. So if you've got any new teachers that have arrived at the school or college this month and are kind of still not fully up to speed with Google Classroom, here's a chance for them to get familiar with it. I think it's about just about 2 and a bit hours in total, so it's not a huge amount of time, and they can do it in small steps. Each of the sections in the Let's Get Started that you can see at the bottom of this screen here are in, and there's little kind of bite-sized chunks within those that they can do. So it's a really useful little way to get them up to speed. I mean, there are other tools out there like Workspace Skills and things, and the standard, there's a whole load of first day of docs, sheets, slides, forms and things in the EDU website, but this is it's a redesign of a Google Classroom course. So encourage you to go and have a look at that if you've got new staff that need to get up to speed that aren't quite there yet. Chances are by October the 3rd they probably are, but just in case, you've got it there should you want it. Okay, just a couple of things about from last month, because I think they're quite important, and I'm aware that in the past we've done updates for some things, and then once I've done them, I've parked them and not really revisited them. And I think some of them are really quite important, so bear repeating. So in Teaching, Learning, Upgrade and Education Plus, so one of those two paid SKUs, you've now got the option to install add-ons within Google Classroom, and there's much better integration into Google Classroom with those things. So there's formative, I think quizzes is in there. The list will just continue to grow. So you can add an activity from a third-party add-on directly into Google Classroom, rather than going to their site, creating the thing, grabbing a link, bringing it back, and just sticking a link in there. There's much greater integration between the two, so you'll be able to use them much more seamlessly. So if you've got, either free versions or paid versions of any of these apps, then that's definitely worth looking at. But it is only available for the Teaching, Learning, Upgrade and the Education Plus upgrade. So if you don't have either of those, then it won't work. And even if the college does have one of those, if the Teaching and Learning Upgrade or the Education Plus upgrade is not assigned to your account, we will not get this additional extra bit in the Google assignments when you go into Google Classroom. It will only appear for people who've got the licenses assigned to their user account. So if you go in there knowing that you've got Teaching and Learning or Education Plus and this little bit on the side doesn't appear, it's probably because you've not got a license assigned to your user account. So just ask admin to add you give you the license, and that should address that issue. Okay, so it just gives you a really nice little additional functionality. And if case there's an admin on the thing, I will mention this again tomorrow. The admin can enable all the add-ons. They've got to do that first, but they can create an allow list that you can go to, and you'll just see the ones that if you've paid for particular ones, the admin person can create an allow list. When you go in there, you'll just see the ones you're allowed to do it. And if you do get it and you start to use it, you can only create them in the web version of Google Classroom. You can do the marking and you can complete the task on a mobile device, but when you're assigning an add-on to an assignment, you've got to do it on the web version of Google Classroom, which is where most people tend to do it. I think it's where most people tend to do it most of the time. Okay. And this one again is in there because you might well start to find this. If there is suspicious activity on your account, you'll be prompted to verify that it's you. So you need to be aware that this is going to start to happen. Yeah. Two-factor might be the way that you verify. It might ask you to send you an email. If you've not attached, send you a text message. If you've not attached your mobile number, you might be asked to attach your mobile number, and so on and so forth. So that it's just, so if someone, for example, manages to break into your account and tries to change the name of the account, that would be classed as suspicious activity, and you'll get little prompts. I haven't seen them yet, so I've not actually seen what they look like. So I can't give you much more information than that. But it's an additional security thing. If there's suspicious activity, you'll be prompted to prove that it's you. And looking in the mirror saying, yeah, that's me, that doesn't cut it. There are two-factor things, or putting the YubiKey back in, or receiving a text message, those kinds of things, or using the Authenticator app on your phone. So you'll be asked to verify if there's suspicious, suspicious activity. There we go. So that's it. Those are all the updates for this month. Not very many at all. There's a couple of things I wanted to show you. Actually, one particular I want to show you. But before that, I just want to come back to the meet just to see if there are any questions from anyone about any of those, or indeed any observations about any of those.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Right, I'm going to be asking these questions from a non-tech background. Okay, so in terms of the add-ons, okay, I'm making the assumption that those third parties have jumped through a fair few hoops with Google to make sure that they're sort of verified, if you like, and secure. Would we get to a point with add-ons where we would have, I don't know, less? I'm thinking about the security issue, and especially perhaps linking in with IT members and things like that. They've got to verify it. Would we get to a stage where you'd end up having dodgy add-on? I mean, if you look at extensions, there are, I can understand it with extensions because there are, thousands of them out there, and X, Y, and Z. I'm just sort of trying to get my head around the language, making sure that these add-ons are totally secure. I'm confident that they are, but I just, you know, I don't know your thoughts on that one.
No, it's a really good and really important question. The add-ons, when GDPR kicked in, however many years ago it was, there was a bit of a purge on add-ons. Quite a number were taken out, and some of them have returned since, once they were GDPR compliant, but a number haven't as well. So I'm confident that the add-ons will be, in the same way that add-ons inside of Google Docs or Google Sheets are all rigorously checked to be fully compliant, then these will be the same. Other things like third-party apps, like things like Pear Deck, for example, still currently isn't fully compliant. So if you're using, it's not GDPR compliant. So if you've got members of staff using Pear Deck, you might want to start to take a different view about that. But the add-ons, my understanding is that they've all been fully checked and all fully compliant. And I'm aware I've got Dave on the
Dave,
phone.
yeah.
It might be that Dave has done any of the research around that. Have you got anything you could add, Dave?
It's difficult. I think the question is extremely valid, and I guess that's why we've got those settings in the admin panel to turn them on a more granular basis, because we've got to remember as well that this is, it's a global product that we're using from predominantly a UK perspective on this call, and certain countries will and will not allow things. Pear Deck is very strong in the US, not approved in the UK. In terms of add-ons, my approach there has been, because you can manage the setting on a per organizational unit basis, I whitelist certain add-ons and disable people from being able to just put new ones on willy-nilly. But I do have a group, a separate OU for the more innovative staff, so like your digital leaders, who are likely to be the ones who are going to go out there and try and solve a problem in a different way. That works quite well, because I can have the conversation. Then membership of that group is relatively small. I can have a conversation with them about, look, try it out, turn it off, because they're also the ones. Add-ons tend to be the things that break Google as well. So I'd recommend an add-on called Extensity, which allows you to turn on and off other add-ons with a single click. So that's something that I find really valuable for testing, because if something else stops working, 9 times out of 10 it's because of an add-on, because obviously the code for those are less well controlled than something that's been developed by Google. And Google wouldn't, when they're releasing a new feature, wouldn't test it against all add-ons. And it tends to be, as Google progresses, as the core apps within Google progress, the add-ons sometimes fall by the wayside or stop working or cause unknown issues. So that's my approach. I don't just allow any user to add any add-on. We whitelist add-ons, and then when they've been approved, but we have that kind of special group set up, so I can just add somebody. If Charlie comes to me and says, I'm having this problem, I need to try an add-on to sort it out, or I want to be a bit more innovative in my classroom practice, or whatever it is. Yep, no problem. Go into this group. You can do it, but please remember to take them off when you're finished with them if you're not going to use them. It just kind of trying to half manage it, but also not present a barrier to innovation.
That's really useful to know, actually, Dave, especially about creating a subgroup. That's really useful. I'll definitely be taking that back to IT. Lovely. Cheers, Dave.
Your kind of level 1, level 2 group, Charlie, would be good. There's lots of candidates in there that could be those testers, couldn't they?
They could, yeah.
Likely to be doing.
And just the teaching and learning team as well. That we got on here, definitely. Brilliant.
But the other thing is, and it kind of, as a teacher, I don't want this to have to happen, but I understand that it has to. I would say that Dave and his team have that kind of, or your data protection officer, if you have one, have that duty of care to check, terms and conditions for all these apps. Yeah, and you have to trust them that they're going to take the best decision. And I'm sure that Dave would. They say, well, actually, yeah, we understand the value of it, but actually the risks are too great. So you've still got to do that duty of care of reading those terms, or someone has within the organization, of reading those terms and conditions, because however brilliant an app is, if they're gathering information that they ought not to be gathering, then you ought not really to be allowing that to happen.
Yeah, anything that we turn on, if it's a third party, we should be doing a data protection impact assessment on anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes that happens and sometimes it doesn't, if I'm being completely open there.
I mean, what I don't know, but I suspect if it's not happening, it might eventually one day start to happen, is Ofsted asking for those?
I'm not aware that Ofsted have asked for that.
No.
I don't think Ofsted even know how to spell GDPR.
I'm going to cut that out as a meme. Little GIF.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry,
no,
this has been recorded, isn't it? I love our
yeah.
Ofsted overlords, by the way. They are fantastic.
So yeah, I mean, I think that might well be true, isn't it? You see, in terms of awareness of the world of tech, even never mind awareness of the world of data protection, you do worry what it's pot of luck what you get with your admin person, isn't it? With your Ofsted person rather, not your admin person. So yeah, and I'm nowhere being recorded. But yeah, so you've still got that duty of care to do that checking, and someone in your organisation will do that, Charlie. But at the same time, you also it's about the risks, isn't it? Yeah, there will be some risks that you've got to say, well, actually, I understand that risk, but actually the value to education is so great, and we need to take a view and we need to make a decision. And sometimes you will choose to accept that particular third-party app, and other times you know they're taking far too much data. There's no reason for taking all of that. It's just ridiculous. Find an alternative, and there often are alternatives out there. Don't forget. So yeah, but it's a really good question.
Yeah, you're right, and there's a risk side of things, but that's all empowered by communication. So you need to be telling your data protection team that you've turned on a new add-on to allow them to do the investigation around it, and they need to be communicating back to you, well, if there's a problem, this is why, to allow you to make that risk-based decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. So any other thoughts?
There is just a question in there from Olivia that I was just going to type a reply in, but I may as well just speak. Yeah, the slide decks are sent out by my good self later this week. Olivia, are you on our direct mailing list for this, or have you kind of joined through somebody else?
Yeah, I think we joined because Bri shared it with us this week, but it was really, really helpful to hear all of those.
Okay.
Yeah, it was going through to our computer services department. So after speaking with Jamie and Stephen this week, they've added me to the list, and then I forwarded it out to all of these guys.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely fine. Olivia, I take it your email address just follows the same as Charlie's and Brian's. So I've got the list, so I'll add you into that, so you'll get your own copy rather than having to steal it off somebody else.
I think Glenda would like that as well, if possible. So
Is that sorry?
Glenda's also in the call. I know she'll.
Not sure about Glenda. Yeah, Glenda.
What's really confusing is Glenda and Brian are sat in exactly the same place.
They're both floating in the
She's
States.
just here. She's just here beside me. I can actually poke her.
Yeah.
Poke her with a stick. There we go. Yeah,
I wanted your hand to come out the side of Brian's.
I know.
Thanks very much, guys. Bye.
Yeah. See you, Olivia. Bye-bye.
So one of the things that came out of the updates this week were the kind of accessibility things that are coming into, well, not coming into, but that are there for calendars. So I thought it might just be worth going through some of those accessibility things, just in case you are not aware of them.
Paul, just before you do that, Lisa's got a hand up there with a question. I think. Go for it. Go for it, Lisa. Go for it.
Sorry, this isn't related to this, but I just wondered on Google Drive, the last few days, the left-hand side menu where it tells you what your folders are.
Yeah.
If they don't always do the drop-down arrow to show you. So, like, if I want to move something, quite often what I do is on the left-hand side, if it's in my drive, if I've scanned it, I then open up the left-hand side, say my admin folder, and within my admin, I've got hundreds of other folders and subfolders. But the drop-down arrow, it shows me some of them, but it's not showing me all of the folders anymore. But if I if I open them, if I go into admin and open it, I can see all the folders. So it's all there, but on the left-hand side, it's not, it's like the drop-down side of things is disappearing.
All right, okay.
Any ideas?
Yeah, go for it, Dave.
I believe you might be having the same issue as a number of Google domains. We've only seen it happening this week as well. Last week, because it's Monday now. We only started to suffer from it last week, but I'm aware from conversations with other Google admins, this has been a worldwide issue for at least 2 or 3 weeks now. And I think other areas that you might see it manifested in is sometimes you don't see all of your documents within a folder or all of your folders within the main pane on the right hand side as well. It's an issue that Google are aware of. There's a number of us have got tickets logged with Google about it. Things that have tended to work for us in the past is the simplest one is just refresh your page, and sometimes they show up. Other times we've had to go in and clear our browsing history or our browsing cache, which is just done from the 3 dots in the top right hand corner of Google. And other times, what's the other one that's worked for us? If you're doing it on a Chromebook, deleting your profile on your Chromebook has helped as well, or signing out and signing in of Google within the browser. So I think from what you've described, it's very likely to be the same issue. It's not something that you guys are doing wrong. It's a known issue worldwide. So it probably will go away within the next version or 2 of Chrome updates.
Okay, thank you very much.
No worries.
Dave, do you know if you just drag the document over to the folder that's not got the arrows showing that it should expand, does it still expand?
I've not tried that, to be honest, Paul.
Okay.
It's I'm trying to replicate it now, and as always with IT support, you can never replicate it when you're trying to do so. But I've not tried that. But like I say, just 9 times out of 10, I've been told just hitting F5 to refresh your page or clicking the curly arrow to refresh your page works. So that would be my first.
If you drag it. I've tried that.
Right. Okay.
All right. Okay. That's a shame. Okay. So back to calendars. Thank you for raising that. So Google know, and the solution will appear in version 106 by the sounds of it. So just a few quick accessibility things in here. So if you've got people that have got accessibility issues, just being able to navigate around here a bit easier might well help them. And the first thing is the view. And you've got the drop down over here in the week where it says, mine currently says week. I'm just as we're doing accessibility, I should have done this earlier. I'm just going to make my mouse a little bit larger so you can see it a little bit better. So you've got the drop down here, but you'll notice when you go to the drop down, each of the options of the view of your calendar has got a letter next to it. So it's a single letter press. So if I just go D, goes to day view, W for week, M for month, and so on and so forth. Y for year, A is for agenda, so you get a long list, and X is the custom view, and mine is currently set to 2 weeks. And you set that custom view inside the cog, inside your settings. You can decide what that looks. I think the default is for 4 days, I think. So it just means that without having to go to your mouse or navigate the mouse, if people are used to using keyboard shortcuts, they can do that little bit easier.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, Paul. So that's like a control D for the day, is it, and things like that?
No,
yeah?
no, that's
No,
the point. It's a single key.
It's a single key,
just
right.
the D.
Yeah. So if I go into my calendar, I just click D, and it'll bring me to a day rather than a week. Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Got it. You know how much I love. You know how much I love my
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
That's a little gem, Paul. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Gem, that one.
yeah, fantastic.
It's just because you're most often at the keyboard, aren't you? So you have to go to your mouse to click on the drop down, to click the option. One, and like all the best accessibility things, of course, a single key press, if someone's got, restricted motor function, a single press is much simpler for them, which is great. But actually, it helps us all because it's quicker. Exactly the same thing happens on a Chromebook. I've never tried it on a PC with number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Don't think you get the agenda. It's 5 the agenda. Yeah, no, there's no 2 week view. That's interesting. Was it 4? Oh, there is. 4 is the 2 week view. So you can do the same there. So you can use them 1 to 6 or D for day, W for week, and so on and so forth. So it just allows you those. Other useful things. C is basically create. So it opens a new calendar event ready for you to fill out the details. So it just gives you that option to move around and create the things you want to create with a little bit easier. I think it's I think Control Enter is save. Yeah, Control Enter is save. I'm just going to delete that. So it just gives you a few kind of accessibility things. And like I say, I'm a huge fan of accessibility tools because the very best ones are good for lots of us, not just for the people they were specifically aimed at in the first instance. So it just gives you a little bit of a feel for the some of the accessibilities that are available and in there. And like I say, in the slide deck that I shared, there's a slide. The title is a link to the blog announcement about the new accessibility things, and then the second link is a link to the web page where all the keyboard shortcuts are, should you want them. Any questions about any of those? Brilliant, thanks for that, Dave. The numbers on a PC work as well as on a Chromebook. So excellent. So we're at 40 minutes. It's silly for us to drag things on. You've had a little demo to little things. I didn't know something you perhaps didn't know about navigating around your calendar. If there are no other questions, then I think we can say thank you very much, and I will see some of you tomorrow at the techie updates for tomorrow. But do ask. I'll stay around if you've got any questions. And nice to see you all. Thanks for coming along.
That was
Lovely.
brilliant. Thank you
Cheers,
so
guys.
much.
Thank you
very much.
Thanks,
You're
everyone.
welcome. See you later.